What's up, guys? So now that I've had this 2006 Porsche Cayman S for about 3 weeks now, I've actually managed to put a little over 1,000 miles on it in just daily commuting. I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of an update in terms of what I think of the car so far, some of the things I like about it and don't like about it as far as daily driving goes, since I haven't tracked the car yet, and more importantly, what are the things that I plan to do to the car before I actually take it out on the racetrack. So if you guys watched my first video when I bought the Cayman, you'll know that I actually bought this car as a dual-purpose vehicle, meaning I'm going to daily drive it, as I have been for the past 3 weeks, and I'm also going to convert this into my track car. So I don't expect it to be as good for daily driving as obviously as my old E39 5 Series. Probably won't be as track focused as my Honda S2000 either, but that's okay. The whole intent of getting this car was to consolidate. So I'll have the NSX as my weekend kind of garage queen, and actually, when I put it that way, why do I even have that car? I don't know. It's totally illogical, but I cannot get rid of the NSX. It's been my dream car forever and will continue to be until, I don't know, my legs fall off or something. And even when that happens, I'll still have it in the garage and I'll hire someone to turn it on and drive it once a week. Yes, I got the Cayman as sort of an inherently compromised car. Not to take anything away from the car itself, but the way I'm going to set it up and the way I'm going to use it is not going to be what you'd think of when you think of, first of all, a practical daily driver, and second of all, as a hardcore track car. But as long as this car can do both of those things moderately well, I will be happy with my purchase. So things I like about the car. First of all, it looks actually really good. I used to not be a big fan of the way the 987 Cayman was styled. I always thought it kind of looked inferior to the 911. It kind of looked more maybe toad-like or frog-like or something. Especially the rear of the car, it just doesn't look as muscular and athletic as the 911, which is obviously the car that I'm going to compare the Cayman to the most. But I will say, after just 3 weeks of owning it, the car's styling has really grown on me. I think the side profile actually of this car looks fantastic. It's super sleek and it just has an actually pretty muscular look to it. The other thing I really like about the car is the interior. This is actually, for a 13 to 14-year-old car, it's actually a really nice place to sit. My car comes with the optional power and heated seats, which are really, really nice. They are not the sport seats, so they're not as aggressively bolstered. The actual torso bolstering is really, really good. I think they'll provide enough support at the track. The thigh bolstering is where this car is a little bit lacking. Obviously, it's designed this way, so it's easy to get in and out of, and it's easy to move your legs around. But at the track, I think that might be a little bit of a problem. But we'll find out. There's a lot of leather. The doors, leather, the dash, leather, steering wheel, leather. It's a nice place to be, and I know some people are really ambivalent about like beige or tan interiors in cars, but I think for a car like this, especially with a black exterior, the beige interior really works, and I really like it. It's got that nice contrast, and it gives it a more classy look. Just as a little side note, one thing about the interior that is absolutely just so annoying, and it basically happens in every single 987 Cayman or Boxster, or 997.1 911, is these climate control buttons. The temperature and fan speed buttons. The paint is basically notorious for rubbing off over time. I haven't really looked into fixes for it yet. I know that actually replacing the switches themselves takes quite a bit of work. So I'm looking for a much easier way to do that. So if you guys have some suggestions, hopefully not plasti dip, but if there's any, other ways to get them looking a little bit better than the way they are now, please let me know. The third thing I like about this car, and this is now finally getting to the mechanics of the car itself, the way the car handles in the canyons is really, really impressive. I've only driven it hard once. You can find that video on the channel. It's got really nice suspension compliance going over some of the bumps and tight turns in my favorite canyon road. The mid-engine balance is super nice, obviously, having more weight over the middle of the car and as a result over the rear axle of the car. You can just come out of corners with more throttle and more confidence because you're not as afraid of the rear stepping out. Also, it's virtually impossible to make this car understeer when driving at 70 to 80% in the canyons. The car really does feel like it's on rails. I know that's a automotive cliche, but it really is pretty much true for this car. The fourth thing I like about this Cayman S is the acceleration, actually. So the straight line performance of this car is definitely the best of any car I've owned. Now that's not saying much because I've never owned a car with 300 horsepower or more. Compared to my 270 horsepower NSX, this car is definitely torquier because of these shorter gear ratios. The acceleration is phenomenal. I mean, 295 horsepower, around 250 or so foot-pounds of torque, in a car that weighs roughly 3,000 pounds. In my opinion, that's basically the ideal power-to-weight ratio of around 10 pounds per horsepower for a fun car that you can actually push into canyons on the street without, you know, fear of losing your license. I think it's just the perfect balance of power to weight. So the fifth thing I like about this car actually is how practical it is. That being said, it only has 2 seats, so obviously it's not that practical for hauling people. For my purposes, it's actually really practical. It's got 2 trunks, obviously, so it's got a trunk in the front and one in the back with the engine in the middle. The rear trunk is pretty shallow, but it's got a pretty big surface area, which is very useful. And the front trunk, or the front, does not have a lot of surface area, but it is very deep, so you can actually fit a lot of stuff in there. And one more thing that I actually like about this car that I almost forgot to mention is that it actually has decent fuel economy. So coming from my old E39 540i, that car I was averaging anywhere from like 21 to maybe close to 22 miles per gallon in pure daily driving. This car so far, I'm at around 23 miles per gallon. Now let's move on to some of the things I don't like. And I'm not going to get into like reliability or maintenance and any of that stuff yet because I haven't experienced those firsthand. This is all stuff that I've experienced in 1,000 miles or 3 weeks of ownership. So number one, and maybe you guys can actually already tell from the audio quality, this car actually has quite a bit of road noise at freeway speed. So I'm going 65 miles an hour right now. It could come down to, partially at least, the tires. This car is running Advance all-season sport tires, which I've never experienced before. But I'm thinking it just has more to do with the design of the car itself. I think this car probably doesn't have a whole lot of sound editing. Also, with the engine right behind me, there is more engine noise. But from what I can tell, it's not really so much the engine noise that bothers me. It's just the tire and overall road noise. There's very little wind noise, which is great. And no squeaks and rattles, which is, I think, might be like an all-time new thing for me because all of my old cars, BMW, NSX, S2000, have all had squeaks and rattles, so this thing is actually pretty nice in that regard. And the second thing I don't like about this car actually also has to do with sound quality, but in a little bit of a different way. So this car is optioned with the upgraded Bose stereo, and I have to say, when the car is stopped or I'm just like cruising at like 10-20 miles an hour, it actually sounds decent. It's got actually a surprising amount of bass, like a shocking amount of bass, actually. It's the first car where I want to turn the equalizer to below 0 for the bass setting, which is crazy. But at freeway speed, so like 70 miles an hour and above, kind of due to a combination of the road noise that I was talking about, as well as just a really weak mid-range and treble in the sound system, it's very, very hard to hear like vocals in music or like podcasts that I listen to. And I actually have to turn the volume pretty high, like higher than I ideally want, in order to hear what I'm listening to, which is kind of annoying. You know what they say, Bose stands for buy other sound equipment, which in my experience with audio equipment, because I am a little bit of an audiophile, yeah, it's typically true. That basically sums up my list of things that I don't like about the car, which is, as of right now, after 1,000 miles, is a very, very short list, which is a really good sign. But now moving on to my future plans for the car. Obviously, I said I'm going to track it, but if you guys are looking forward to track videos, you might want to wait a little longer because I do have some key things I need to do to the car first before I feel comfortable tracking it. For me, that means getting another set of wheels and tires. which thankfully I already got. I got a killer deal on a set of Porsche specific fitment Advan RS wheels, so 18 by 8.5 in the front, and then 18 by 9.5 in the rear. And they already came with less than 2-year-old Bridgestone RE71R tires, which, if you guys know, are a fantastic tire, and really looking forward to tracking on those. The annoying thing, and I probably should have added this to the list of things I don't like, is that Porsches, as well as some other German cars, don't come with wheel studs. So this is something I just did not realize, because I never really took the wheels off of my BMW. I never really needed to. But yeah, so if I wanted to swap out wheels and tires quickly, that's basically not going to happen, because I have to line up all 5 of the holes on the wheel like just right, and then insert these massive bolts and kind of thread those bolts into the holes, which is just kind of a pain. And I don't know why German cars are like this. All of the Japanese cars I've owned, even ones that are like the NSX, like almost 30 years old, have studs, which just makes changing wheels so much easier. The other thing I want to do to the car before I track it is more reliability related. So, as I mentioned in a previous video, these 987.1 Caymans and Boxsters are prone to fuel starvation when cornering at high lateral Gs. So it's an M97 engine issue. There have been many people on the forums who have stated that their engines have actually failed due to oil starvation at the track. And there are a few different preventative measures that you can take to reduce the chance, but not completely eliminate the chance of that happening. So from my research, I think I'm going to go with the LN Engineering Deep Sump Kit. I think it's an $800 kit, and basically it'll add, I forget, like maybe 1 liter or 2 liters of oil capacity to the engine, and it actually comes with like a windage or windage tray or whatever you call it. So it should help keep the engine well lubricated even when the car is cornering at high Gs, which it undoubtedly will with the RE71R tires. But once I have those things done, I'm definitely going to take it to the track. Very excited to see what kind of lap times I can turn with just tires and basic brake upgrades. I expect this car to be significantly quicker and faster in terms of top speed than my S2000 on the straights. In the corners, that remains to be seen, since the car will be on stock suspension. I have no plans to go coilover anytime soon. Stay tuned for more videos featuring the Cayman. The actual full street driving review of this car will come out a little bit later. So I am planning to do some comparison videos with this car, since the comparison videos seem to appeal to you guys a little more than the single car reviews. So I will compare this to my 91 NSX. I will also compare it to my buddy's C6 Corvette, hopefully, since that car is also around the same price range, and offers a lot of the same things that you get with the Cayman, just albeit it accomplishes those things in a different way. And of course the S2000. So I might actually do a 3-way comparison between an S2000, the Cayman S, and a C6 Corvette. If there's any other suggestions you guys have, let me know and I'll try to make it happen. Follow me on Instagram if you want to see more frequent updates about the car. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.